Yo, what's up guys? It's Bill here, Classic Rock and Metal Review. Time to get back into it. Monthly haul action here. Give you reviews on some of the more recently acquired items and CDs and things. And not limited to CDs. I have got some vinyl recently. I'll show you some of it and we'll get caught up with some of the things that I haven't even shown you yet. The old school monthly haul was only me showing you items. Now I've turned it into reviewing recently acquired items, but I really should have been showing you the other things I got all along. So we'll catch up a little bit. I'll show you, I think, 7 things that I got. So maybe there'll be future reviews coming up on future monthly hauls. Guys, this just covers commercially available CDs and vinyl. Whole separate episode for bootlegs, whole separate episode for concert videos, whole separate episode for deluxe edition box sets. So we'll get to all those coming soon. Also coming soon, the Live Evil review. That's a whole episode in and of itself. Black Sabbath monthly episode. Trying to catch up, guys, on all that stuff. I'm on it. All right, coming soon. Also, thanks for all the condolences. Things settling down with that. Bummer, life goes on. So let's get it going on with some music. First up, guys, this is something I picked up on Record Store Day. I didn't get anything new at Record Store Day. Even I had a couple things in my hand. I just decided to pass, But headed over to the bargain bin and got 6 winners for, I think it was $15 or something. And let me just stop right there and make a point about that. I have the money to buy some stuff, right? But why not get a half a dozen things for $15? And the beauty is, if I don't like it, if it costs $3 or $4, who even cares, So I end up buying things I otherwise wouldn't, when I'm shopping through those bargain bins and things. I think I got a Macaulay Schenker Group CD. Still haven't listened to that one yet, but I picked up that Steve Winwood, About Time, which I loved, Really been into that all last 2 months. One of those bargain bin finds was Daryl Hall, Sacred Songs. Daryl Hall, of course, let's just recap his situation real quick. Half of Hall & Oates. Those guys started out in 1970. They put out 6 studio albums between 72 and 77. This album was recorded in 3 weeks' time, August of 77. Robert Fripp was the producer of this album. Now, I knew none of this when I picked it up. I just saw Daryl Hall. In fact, I thought it was a 1999 solo album. And based on that, that's when this Buddha Records release came out. So, to my surprise, it was actually recorded in 77. RCA Records. Now, Robert Fripp met Hall in 1974. And the two hit it off right away. Fripp was very complimentary on Hall's vocal ability. Hall, who knew it, a fan of King Crimson, all right? So a Prague fan, Daryl Hall. So they, at that point, agreed to work together at some point down the road. Now, in 74, kind of coincidentally enough, or maybe it wasn't coincidence, the third Hall & Oates album, pretty different from their first 2. And the first one's kind of different from the second one, but even more drastically so with the third album right behind me there, War Babies. They brought in Todd Rundgren as producer, all kinds of different effects and things going on with that, especially on guitars. Some off-tempo, progressive tempo things here and there. Now, not a drastic departure, but definitely a step in a new direction for Hall & Oates. So I guess the seed's already maybe sown at that point. Now, Hall, moving forward by 77, felt kind of trapped in that Hall & Oates pop duo arrangement. By 77, he was pretty much insisting on doing a solo record. Now, Robert Fripp, King Crimson, had dissolved in 74. He really wasn't doing a heck of a lot. It looks like just some guitar session work. And what happened after this album was recorded was that RCA Records refused to release it. They just thought it was too far in left field. They also felt it was going to hinder his reputation as half of Hall & Oates and maybe sort of alienate the Hall & Oates fans. What ended up happening, but it took 3 years, was sort of industry-wide and fan-supported letter writing campaign to the record company. DJs and things were involved in helping to eventually get this album released, but not until, check this out, March of 1980. So this thing sat around for 2.5 years before it got released. So that gives you a little backstory to this. I mean, who would have known? Daryl Hall, progressive rock guy. Fripp, I think, in some interview, said that he felt Daryl Hall could have been somewhat of another David Bowie had he been allowed to branch out the way he wanted to. He was not comfortable sticking with the formula. But that's pretty much what was going on. And my favorite Hall & Oates is actually their earliest stuff, their first 4 albums. I really sort of get out of them 76, okay album there. But 77 to 79, I'm not into that. I think they get their bearings back in 80. They sort of concede that they're in the pop field, and maybe he was able to blow off some steam by recording this, and then eventually releasing it in 80. I feel like in 80 they sort of get a sound going, one that works. Maybe trying too hard, 77 to 79 kind of thing, but also probably a little uninspired. Conjecture on my part, all right, knowing all that I know. So, it's also been suggested that this is the first of a trilogy that Robert Fripp was involved with, this being part 1, Peter Gabriel's 1978 album being part 2, where Fripp played guitar, and then Robert Fripp's own Exposure album in 1979. So I'm not sure if that's true or not, but I guess there's some loose tie-ins, let's say. What we're holding here, guys, is a Buddha Records. I don't know much about Buddha. I have a couple of Fifth Dimension CDs by them, which are pricey and elusive, to say the least. But that's with the 5D situation. Now, I don't know if this one's rare or not really. I paid $3 for it in the bargain bin, so it was an automatic. Anyway, this is a 10-track album, and you get 2 bonus tracks, which are 2 of the songs Daryl Hall recorded for Robert Fripp's 79 album. Now, to underscore how unhappy RCA was about Hall being involved with Robert Fripp, Hall recorded all of the vocals for that album, and the record company wouldn't release that album with Hall singing all those songs. They let him just do the two that are here as bonus tracks. So let's get into Sacred Songs, Daryl Hall, recorded in 77, released in 80, solo album. Now the first, obviously with Robert Fripp at the helm, you're going to be heading in a progressive direction. Not going to be your traditional pop rock record, right? Sacred Songs, the title track to start things off, might be the closest thing to a Hall & Oates song. Upbeat, sort of pop rocker, not too hard rock and not too poppy. I'd say maybe reminiscent of their 4th album, the Silver and Black, Daryl Hall and John Oates album. But it's just an okay song. I don't love it. Something in 4/4 Time. That's the name of the second song. That one's really pretty cool. I like that one. Sort of complex background vocals, harmonies, reminiscent of Hall & Oates actually. And they're cool, they're interesting. There's some swirling progressive passages in this song that really spice it up. The tone on the guitar for the solo, really sort of fuzz tone guitar. I like that sound. When it's used sparingly, I like the fuzz tone sound, almost like a fusion guitar. So I really like Something in 4/4 Time, the second song. That's really good. The third song on here is my favorite song, Babs and Babs. This one is one of my all-time favorite Hall & Oates songs, actually. It's that good. This one's awesome. Sort of this bass-driven, sort of looping riff that just keeps going throughout most of the song, except for this quiet stanza. There's these little tasty harpsichord flourishes in there. It just sets a real unique mood. I just can listen to this riff for an hour, I think. It's such a good riff. Floyd-like guitar in spots. I mean, this song's really got a little of everything going on, but it is kind of a little on the spacey side, but not in a psychedelic way. It just keeps moving, and then it does have like I said, that one quiet stanza where things get a little spacey, sort of a keyboard-only little bridge. It's just a really good song. I can't get enough of it, actually. I like how it fades in, fades out slow. I think it might even fade back in before it fades out. I'm not sure. There's something on this album that does that. This song really kind of reminds me of The Trial by Pink Floyd, which of course this was recorded way before The Trial existed. So if anything, The Trial sounds like Babs and Babs, but real sort of intense kind of beat going on, thumping kind of beat. I love it. Now, I really don't dig most of the rest of this album, and I really can describe a lot of why, talking about all the songs sort of at once. So I'm not going to belabor dragging through every single song here. I could if I wanted. There is one more song I like. It's the last song on the album, Without Tears. That's pretty good. But in between, really almost a complete lack of melody on a lot of these songs. Now that's sort of, I mean, musically and vocally, I have to say. Even when things are sort of in the melodic sense being played, or melodic songs, they're really not very memorable ones, There's way too much overlapping lead vocals. It's as if there's two Daryl Halls in the studio. One's coming to the end of his line, the other one steps in and starts singing. It's, if that was done once or twice, but it seems like half the songs have that. It's too busy for me. There's a lot of singing. Too many parts where the drums are just like double time with the music, or even when they're full time, they're just too fast. It's a really busy sounding album. Not a lot to grab onto. Definitely not a melodic record overall. Now, I give it a lot of points for being different, stretching out. I really kind of like that. I really like that I have it. Let's put it that way. Not something I'm going to probably play that often, but I'm going to, every now and then I want something different, and that's what this is. It's not bad. It's just not my cup of tea, mostly. There's 3 songs on here that I like. One that I love, one of those 3. Without Tears at the end reminds me kind of one of my criticisms of their first album, Whole Oats, was those, I think, 4 songs that are basically either guitar and vocal only or piano and vocal only. Without Tears is a piano and vocal only, but here the difference is Hall has so much confidence. He's stretching that voice out for all it's worth. Where on the first album, really sort of mellow kind of tone, real somber kind of thing. Not the case here. So in a nutshell, 1 or 2 songs that are Hall & Oates like, but probably just average. Babs and Babs is awesome. Love that one. Something in 4/4 Time's pretty good. Without Tears is good. Interesting overall. Adds some nice color to the collection, but just a little too busy for me and a little lack of melody throughout. The 2 bonus tracks for me don't do much in the way of anything different than most of the album here, honestly. So I have to give this one a 7. I know it probably sounds like I could be giving it worse. I probably could, but I actually kind of like the fact that it's different. It just doesn't have enough of what I like when I listen to music, So 7.0 for Daryl Hall, Sacred Songs. How about a toast to Gordon Lightfoot? He just left the earth this year, May 1st, 2023. God rest his soul. A lot of great music from him. It's actually a tequila mixer someone got us, but it's with vodka since we're out of tequila. And you know what? Since I made that drink strong, that sweet ass juice, cutting it good. All right, Gordon Lightfoot. We're going to talk about Summertime Dream. Canadian singer-songwriter from Ontario. He came onto the scene late 50s, made a name for himself in the 60s during the big folk explosion, where some of his peers went rock or leaned towards rock. Gord stayed entrenched in folk. A real Canadian hero, obviously. Canadian Music Hall of Fame. He's a legend up there. Albums in the 60s and 70s started to make some noise in the American market, especially more in the 70s. 1970, If You Could Read My Mind, that song, one of his biggest, obviously. Gord's Gold in 1975, I believe, was a double album. Half of 60s re-recordings, half of recordings from the 70s, which is just a perfect album. Awesome. And maybe I have to admit, one of those albums, probably all you need from someone like that. However, you know what? I picked this guy up, I don't even know when, maybe January or so. And it was only $1, you know, plus shipping on eBay. So what the hell? It was brand new. 1976 album. And so none of this material is on Gord's Gold. So that's kind of nice. All new material if you already own that. Released January of 76, recorded December of 75 to 76. Reprise Records, well known for the wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald that's on there. Basically a classic. The SS Edmund Fitzgerald went down in Lake Superior only a month before he started recording this album. So immediately inspired. And the album was number 1 in Canada, number 12 in the US. Wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald, the song, number 1 song in Canada, and actually reached number 2 in the States. So huge for him. Basically my history with him was riding around in the backseat of my mom's car, dad's car. Those 3 big hits, you know. If you could read my mind, Sundown, and Carefree Highway would probably be the other one. Wreck, I only heard here and there. Now, also another memory I have of Gordon Lightfoot. This is back in 1989. I remember this by what I was driving. I had $20 to last me from Sunday till I got paid on Friday. And I was in a record store and I bought Gord's Gold on cassette for $11.98, I think it was. And I actually put it down, went to my car, and I got into my car. I'm like, what else am I going to do with that 20 hours this week? Not something as cool as buying Gord's Gold. Out of the car, back into the mall, bought that thing, and somehow made that $7 and change last a week. So just a funny little memory. I got to see him live in 92, 96, and then again last year, 2022. So there's a great documentary on him called If You Could Read My Mind. It's a few years old at this point. I only saw it a year or two ago myself. But it's really cool. He's interviewed throughout it. Of course, other associated people, but it's probably a good 2/3 of him being interviewed. A lot of old pictures and things like that. Really cool. Sad that he's gone. We'll miss Gordon Lightfoot. So let's get the Summertime Dream. Starts out with Race Among the Ruins, okay? Basically, guys, Gord's Gold is almost like a perfect album. Every song on there is really damn good, man. Race Among the Ruins could be on Gord's Gold, okay? Just classic folk pop. Wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald, clocking in at 6 minutes and 28 seconds. I already told you how popular it was. You probably know it, I'm sure. Great song, and, you know, just had that submersible incident happen yesterday, or they just finally found them. Man, that is some scary shit, being out there in the ocean. I have to tell you, it's not for me, all right? Great song, just a classic. Always plays in it. It's always just totally enthralling, poetic, majestic. I mean, everything you want a great sort of storytelling classic to be. He nails it, you know? I'm Not Supposed to Care. Great song. If I remember right, it's pretty much just a ballad. I'd Do It Again. This is a good one. This is kind of as rocking as Gordon Lightfoot gets. He's got a good band, and they just talk about sitting in the pocket. That's all these guys ever do. But they are able to amp it up a little here and there, and that's what the song is. I'd Do It Again. Other favorites, I would say, The House You Live In. That's a pretty good, slow one. Sort of contemplative. More about lyrics here than music. It's decent. Summertime Dream next is great. I love that one. Classic. Saw him do that on Saturday Night Live. Replay, you know, in the 80s, I think. Actually, 76 was when he was on there. Spanish Moss is a really good song. And Too Many Clues in This Room, last song. I don't necessarily love that song, but he thought enough of it to play it last year. So, overall, man, really good album. I got to give this one about an 8.5. I don't know if the rest of his regular albums are this good. You know, I tend to think they're not, but I can tell you this one is solid. Really good album by Gordon Lightfoot. All right, how about a halftime break here? Show you some of the stuff I picked up. I think this is all from back in April. Didn't really show you this stuff. Rolling Stones, Black and Blue. I love this album. Probably in my top like 4 Stones albums. That's kind of saying a lot. They got some great stuff, man, right? Just sort of straight ahead rocker kind of album, 76. Love it. Love the sort of Jamaican tinge stuff that's on here. Hey Negrita. Awesome. Used to have it. I don't know what happened to it. Probably the ex-wife has it. James Taylor. This is a newer one. 2002. 2001, 2002. October Road. I still have to get a lot of his older stuff yet. But this one got great reviews. I think it might have even won a Grammy. So you know what? I think I picked it up for a couple bucks. All these CDs from eBay for a couple dollars, guys. That would include, this one might have been more like $4 or $5. Rat 1999 album. Kind of intrigued by what little I know about this. I still haven't listened to any of these, by the way, if I didn't say that. Black and Blue I've had forever. But James Taylor, Rat. Sounds like they just went more like the sort of classic rock kind of route. Still sort of in between metal and rock, I guess you'd say. Anyway, looking forward to this one, man. Kind of sounds interesting. Rat from 1999. Something that was a new release that I picked up. I mean, I'm a huge Floyd fan. Probably don't spend enough time talking about Floyd. You got to grab your copy of the Wembley, right? It's out on official CD. I know it was part of the Dark Side box set years ago. Kind of lukewarm on wanting that anymore these days, especially for a couple $100. Just the regular album. Now, you know what's interesting? I should have pulled it off the shelf. I have a bootleg copy of this I really didn't realize it was a bootleg when I got it, honestly. But it has echoes on the end after, the Dark Side suite. So that's killer. But I figured I'd just pick this up just to, I'm sure the sound quality is going to be as good as possible. So got to grab your copy for 10 or 12 bucks off Amazon, right? Coming up soon, I've already listened to this, I think twice, The Dark, and I haven't heard it since back in the day. The first album was one of the first metal albums that I got rid of in the 80s that got back quickly early 90s. Now, The Dark I just never did. I don't know why, because I have Blessing in Disguise and just skipped over The Dark. So, coming up soon, you'll see what's up with this one as far as whether it's as great as I remember or not. All right, guys, I know I don't buy much vinyl, but occasionally I do. Store had this guy secondhand in excellent condition. I think it was, I don't know, maybe 10 bucks, 15 bucks. Not like a bargain or anything. You can get this. This is Manassas, Stephen Stills Manassas' second album called Down the Road. From what little I know about this guy, the reviews are not as favorable, nearly as favorable as the first album, but I've never heard it, so I saw it in nice condition, so what the heck. So I still haven't checked this one out yet either. That's the whole point of what I'm showing you here now, guys. Stuff that I got back in April, actually. Still haven't shown you that I got it. And Stills Young Band, double shot there of some Stephen Stills. This is with Neil Young, 1976, Long May You Run. This one I used to have on tape back in the day. All tapes are long gone. This should be great. I did hear some of this on the Neil archives that came out around Christmas or November, I think. A couple of these songs are on there. Really love Fountain Blue. An awesome Fountain Blue on that box set. It's like live. It's killer. So it'd be good to hear the regular album. Midnight on the Bay is great. I remember this stuff pretty well. But this could be a Love You Long Time actually too, So there you go. All right, so let's get back to some reviews. First one up, we'll do Eric Clapton, Another Ticket. This is his album from 1981. First album that he released since 78. Originally recorded for RSO Records, which shut down in 83, so now it's a Polydor product. 9 songs recorded in the Bahamas and featuring Albert Lee, who was real popular sort of country finger-picking Fender Telecaster guitar player, country, rock, rockabilly style of guitar. Tom Dowd, producer, who had worked with a million people, Chicago, Cream, Allman Brothers, Bee Gees. Well known, of course. Overall, guys, more of Eric Clapton's post-Cream style here. We're not blowing the world up like Slow Hand did, but it's still a really nice blend of rock, pop, blues, some of those other sort of blues influenced styles like New Orleans blues kind of style. here and there. And again, the focus on the songs themselves as opposed to just guitar like he was with Cream. So really just more of the same from Clapton. But, that same is pretty damn good stuff. I admit, I'm just starting to get into Clapton's solo career the last year or so. I picked up that master recording of Slow Hand about a year ago, and that got it kick-started. I ran in the backlist at a pawn shop for $1 in the fall or winter, whatever it was. That's a really good album. So this one I came across for a couple bucks on eBay. Another Ticket, 1981. Not sure why it took 3 years between backlist and this one, but that's what happened. So let's just go down these songs. Something Special to open an opener. Decent sort of meandering blues from what I remember of that one. Strolling kind of song. Nothing special. Black Rose, kind of country rock. There's some real good piano in here. And Gary Brooker of Procol Harum is the piano player on this album, so that's kind of cool. Blow, Wind, Blow, third song in. That's a Muddy Waters cover. I'm not a huge fan of straight blues. It sounds good enough, just nothing impressive yet on this album for me. Now, things start to get better at this point. Another Ticket, the title track, which was a single from the album. And it is like a ballad, I guess you'd say. Not as sappy as like Wonderful Tonight. Sort of atmospheric, slow, the like keyboard or synthesizers like in the background as the whole backdrop for the song. And I really kind of like this one. It just works for me, and it might not work for everyone, I admit that, but I kind of like it. Perfect lead-in, by the way, to the next one, I Can't Stand It, because this is a song that heard a lot back in the heyday of classic rock, mid-'80s, even before that actually, but up until when that ran its course. And I haven't really listened to the radio in 25 years, honestly. But we heard it 1,000 times back then. A nice 30-year vacation from I Can't Stand It. Really did the song well, for me anyway. I love that one. Awesome. And again, man, I don't know if I just never listened close enough. I guess back in the day, the only thing I had from Clapton was the timepieces, best of, on cassette, and I was listening to it on my bullshit sound design stereo, So I gotta tell you, now that I have a real system and I'm buying these regular albums as opposed to that cassette of timepieces, the production on his albums friggin' awesome. And this one sounds great. I Can't Stand It. It's just awesome. It's like you hear every single instrument you hear clearly. Not that there's 1,000 people playing on here. Straight up 5-piece band kind of thing. Great. And like I said, not hearing it all this time really did it some favors. I love this one. Hold Me Lord, number 6. I don't remember much about that, I'll be honest with you. Floating Bridge, another blues cover. This one's a longer song though, 6.5 minutes. Sleepy John Estes is his name. Cover song. Catch Me If You Can, the next one up. This one's really awesome. I love this song. Real sort of urgent, funky beat going on here with the drums and the piano driving the song. Maybe New Orleans blues if you want to call it that. Clapton and Gary Brooker wrote this together, and just love this one. There's a minute or two towards the end where Clapton's guitar solo is like double tracked, a la Cocaine, the way it is on Cocaine. And it's awesome, man. Man, he needs to do that way more often, because every time he does it, it's just great. And I mean, same thing when Iommi does it, like in War Pigs. I just love that shit. Just give me more of that. So this one's a great one, Catch Me If You Can. Rita May's a good one too. Fast backbeat, really just sort of a vehicle for jamming. And I mean, there's nothing wrong with hearing Eric Clapton jam on a guitar, right? So Rita May's a good one too. Overall, I got 3 songs on here I really like. A couple more that I like. The rest of them I don't necessarily love. I'm not a big blues guy, so when things are straight up blues covers, not going to light me on fire. Nothing earth-shattering or game-changing here overall. But the album, real good sort of typical Clapton gumbo of rock blues, like I already explained. New Orleans blues, a little rockabilly. Just classic, sort of earthy Eric Clapton, which is kind of good. It's kind of like, you have your Test, you have your Control. This would be your sort of Control. Eric Clapton solo albums, your rock and roll Control out of everything you listen to. If you're listening to a lot of different things like me, progressive, light rock, acoustic rock, metal. Here's your right down the middle classic rock, and someone who's awesome at it. Little blues thrown in there too, always with Clapton. Really like it, man. Nice back to basics album. I'll have to give it like a 7.7. Really enjoying me some Eric Clapton solo the last year or so. And this one, it doesn't get great reviews. It gets good reviews. I guess that's about where I fit it in there. 7.7 out of 10. Right, lastly, guys, Scorpions, In Trance, 1975 album. Produced by Dieter Dirks, recorded in West Germany. 10 songs, RCA Records, the original release. And I kind of draw a parallel with Scorpions and UFO in that their first two albums were kind of finding your way. Third album, the beginnings of what we would kind of know those bands to be about in years to come. So definitely fits the bill, I think, here too. Also with UFO, obviously. The goal here, I think, when they were recording this album was to finally have a certain style, certain sound. So they achieved that for sure. Basically got rid of any long songs. Everything on here, like pretty much 3 or 4 minutes in that vein. More cohesive album than the first two were. They could be a little hodgepodge of styles. One song sounded a lot different than the one before it. Not so with this one. This does sound, I think they achieved their goal. More cohesive sort of style. Klaus Meine, vocals. Rudy Schenker, guitar. Yuli John Roth on guitar, who's awesome, as we all know. And I'm learning, Francis Buchholz on bass. Rudy Lenners is the drummer, who I think did 2 albums with him. This being, I think, the first. So this is my first, back in the day, guys, I had Love Drive, Animal Magnetism, Blackout, Love at First Sting. So this is my first venture into the older albums, as I used to call them. Any of these albums that I saw, didn't really know anything from, based on like Worldwide Live and things. I would just consider them the older albums. So that's where this one would fall. Guys, the first time I still, even after 4 listens, have sort of the same opinion. Maybe not as much as I did the first time I heard it. But what jumps out at me after listening to this the first couple times, album-oriented rock. I mean, we all have heard that expression, AOR. And I say that as a compliment. There's the obvious bands who do that stuff like Floyd and Yes, but you usually don't associate that with hard rock bands. I kind of do with this album. The songs individually are good. There's a couple of standout songs, but it's really an album where the sum is better than the parts. And if you're someone that zips through an album or fast forward, skips tracks, I would say don't do it with this one. I'm not someone who ever does that. I never skip through tracks, I might pull up a song if I'm in a hurry and only have time for one song. But I never put an album on and skip through it. Very, very rarely. If you do, don't do it with In Trance. It really needs to be heard all the way through. And I'm not saying, that these songs aren't great, but they are great by themselves. There's just something about, I like hearing this whole album, And I really think, if you only heard a couple songs, you'd probably like it. If you hear the whole thing, I think you'll love it, The genre here, hard rock, metal, it is probably right in between. And in 1975, there wasn't that much metal out there. Really just Sabbath and a couple other bands, But there's just so many layers of sounds here going on and lots of little different guitar tones, little guitar parts, occasionally an organ, keyboard, synth, like little things here and there. And yet it's still, at the core, a hard rock or a metal album. The one constant I would say throughout it all, Yuli John Roth's riffs, they sort of make songs. They sort of are songs within the songs, which is something I would say about Thin Lizzy, Some of those older classic Thin Lizzy riffs were just, to me, and they would be totally different than the song itself. They weren't riffs of what the vocalist was doing. They were just their own sort of thing. Yuli John does that here. Works great. My favorite songs, Dark Lady to start the album. How do you not love that one? That's awesome. And everything I just described, all those different things going in. You have sound effects going in, hard rock guitar, that funky sort of offsetting drum beat, that goes with the end of each line in the verse. Just great, man. Love Dark Lady. The next one, In Trance, sort of in the power ballad mold. Another really good one and another favorite. Life's Like a River, another good one. But probably the next one, top of the bill, would be another top of the list for me. Great favorite one. This one's one of the few sort of straight ahead rockers on here. If there's one criticism about this album, there's probably not enough of that. And probably just a few, at least one or two too many songs in sort of the power ballad mold, where they start mellow, verses mellow, chorus is loud and rocking, Not power ballads per se, cooler than that, but the same sort of structure over and over a little bit. That just gets a little tedious. There could have been in one more rocker as opposed to one of those types of songs, because there's a lot of those. But they are awesome. This whole album is really solid. Robot Man's good. Longing for Fire, next to last song, that's a good song. Kind of shades of Rush, especially when it first starts. Buckhold's really hopping around on that bass, a la Geddy Lee style. Really cool. Night Lights at the end, this is just an instrumental. Guys, don't dismiss that song. That's actually one of my favorites. Probably in the top 4 on this album. And maybe number 3. Instrumental, like I said, very Floydian. Harder than that, but sort of in that vein, It's just another Uli John Roth run of notes on the guitar that just think, what a great riff there. Night Lights, just great name. I mean, that name of the song, the title alone, I don't know. You're at the top of a mountain looking over a city kind of thing. Kind of paints this picture musically. And the title, I guess, was what puts me there. But anyway, like it a lot. I can really say that about the whole album. It's just dotted with interesting little musical things. Nothing's overdone, At the core, yeah, it's a hard rock album. Not a lot of straight ahead rockers. That would be the one criticism. But all said and done, tasty, well written, really well produced album. Probably go 8.7 with the Scorpions In Trance. And if you don't have it, you got to get this one. Out of the 4 reviews I did, this would probably be my favorite. Awesome. Guys, that's going to do it for the monthly haul for June 2023. Lots of stuff coming up. I got some work to do. I'm going to get it done. Y'all, thanks for all the condolences. And guys, I'll see you soon. Cheers. And by the way, throw your names in the hat for this stuff. I don't want to be stuck with it. All right, man. Catch you later.